which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Vaughn,
Yep.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Here.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Here.
O'Laughlin, Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Hill. All those,
Before you vote on that, I want to, it is one agenda item. I will be asking for two separate motions under that item. One has to do with authorization to bid, advertise for bids on the street. The other one is an agreement to close purchase on real estate, subject to, and it ties back into that street the street bidding. So I'll read that to you, but just so you're aware on the agenda that it's going to have two motions associated with that.
Okay.
okay. So I do have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
The first one, to try and do this in order, we have an agreement to close. Part of the issue is Casey's wants commitment that the city will in fact build the street if we do this, but we have to have those bids in order to assure them that the bids aren't going to be so high that the council chooses not to build the street. That's their concern. And while I don't anticipate that, that is the ultimate fear, is that, if the bids came in at $1 million on a $400 street, then we decide not to build it, Casey's gets, left holding the bag. So my question, or my response back to Casey's is they're the only ones that have kicked this can down the road for this long. What assurance does the council have that we're actually going to close? And as we put all this together, this is the agreement that I'm asking the council to allow me to sign. I'm also asking Casey's, Rydell, and Larson's to sign this agreement. In essence, it puts everybody on notice that we will close within 48 hours of all of these contingencies that are being thrown around here are met. And it stops us from moving this down the road. But in short, it says that the real estate closing will happen contingent upon the Iowa DOT granting the city one or more permits to facilitate construction of Enterprise Drive East, including but not limited to a permit to perform work within the state right-of-way upon terms and conditions and design specifications acceptable to all parties. That relates back to our understanding from DOT that we need one permit. Casey's feels like we need 4 permits. We've already confirmed we don't, but it just satisfies their concern about us securing the permit. Casey's and Independence will have notified the other parties that all issues related to SIPCO easement affecting the boundary line between Casey's property and Independence property have been resolved to the satisfaction of both parties. That relates to an access permit or easement that SIPCO has to get back to their substation. They have an easement to drive along Casey's property. Casey's does not want them on their property. They want them to use the new street. Seems fairly logical if the street is there, but that access easement has to be revoked. The utility easement will remain on that stretch of property that Casey's has. The city, after satisfaction of contingencies set forth in this agreement, notifying the parties that it has obtained bid proposals for the construction of Enterprise Drive East, anticipating completion in 2019, deemed acceptable by the city in its sole discretion, and the city will accept one of the bid proposals upon closing. In essence, it's saying that we will advertise bids on the street. As long as we find at least one of the bids acceptable for the street construction, that we will proceed with construction as soon as closing takes place. In other words, we agree that we can't award the bid until we have the property We will make every effort we can to start the construction as soon as possible so that we have the best opportunity to complete it in 2019, which we would do anyway. The reason I'm reading this and want to make it very specific is I have stood my ground on not being able to guarantee completion of a street in 2019 because I don't know when we're going to close. I don't know when I can start construction. I don't know what the weather's going to do. I don't know who the contractor is. I mean, there's all these variables that are beyond what we can do. So we will proceed post haste, but I can't guarantee completion if I don't know when I can start. And a contractor won't guarantee completion until they know that they've got a contract. They're not going to give up other work on a questionable contract so that they can promise this will be done. I mean, it doesn't work out very well. So I do ask for your permission to sign this agreement to close on this real estate transaction if these contingencies are met.
That sounds like the same thing we are without it. Much, you said it's to the discretion of the council.
It all,
That's what they're afraid of.
they, well, this,
They're afraid of us not approving it. It's still at our discretion.
it's still at our discretion. This is really, everybody saying, yeah, we agree that we're going to close within 48 hours of all these things coming together. It's not so much on our behalf that we're not going to do it. It's more about, will Casey's perform on the closing of real estate if these are met? And that's the whole issue right now. Rydell is the one that needs the comfort level that something's going to happen because they've got a $4 million project that's, they're sitting here waiting. They have to make some commitments. They can't make those commitments, or they don't feel like they can make those commitments until they know that there's going to be a road, that there's going to be a closing so that they have access to their property. They're the ones that are probably hanging out here the furthest on any of these contingencies. So I don't feel confident in bringing a request to the council asking you to move ahead with a bid letting on a street with no assurance from Casey's that we're actually going to follow through with closing. And I have to put a stop to this moving target of contingencies that keep coming up. And that's really where we're at.
If we pass this, when is the 48 hours up?
Upon these contingencies being met, in other words, we have to have an acceptable bid. Well, that's June 6th that we are proposing to accept bids. We'll know on the 6th whether or not we have an acceptable bid. It suggests that we will consider the bids on the 10th. The one caveat I have is I'm not sure that I can bring a closing to you on the 10th to where we want to close on this contract because there are two other issues or contingencies in here. So that piece of the language, when we get to the next the next item on advertising the bids, we have to be very careful of. We won't award the bid until we close on the property as this states. And that's one piece in that resolution that we have to modify. SIPCO, their easement issue, I don't see as being a timing issue. That's really a no-brainer. They're going to travel down a street instead of on an easement adjacent to the street. I mean, it makes sense. The biggest one is the DOT permit. They should have that done within 30 days. We've talked to DOT over the last several months. Casey's has talked to DOT. Brian Crawford talked to DOT as recently as this week. I mean, we've got a lot of people there, but we have to have the application for this permit submitted. They're not going to tell us how fast they can work on it until they actually get it in their hands. So right now, both Casey's and Rydell are signing letters of authorization to apply for this permit because they're the owners, and both have to concur with this application for the permit before the city can send it in. We're sending it in as a proxy for Casey's and Rydell at this point because it is our street. We've paid for the design plans, we put it all together, but we're not allowed to make that application because we're not the owner. And it just keeps getting more and more convoluted. Everybody's agreed, DOT agreed to accept it, subject to having these letters of proxy, if you will, from Rydell and Casey's. We'll send it in, hopefully yet this afternoon. I'm still waiting for one letter from Rydell, but I think that that's coming. I know that they support it. But I can't tell you when DOT will authorize that permit. They, by law, get 60 days to review it. They've assured us that they thought they would be through it in 30 days, probably less, but 30 days is the window that they've given us. We can't hit a June 10th closing if I give them the full 30 days.
So we're talking probably July 1st?
Oh, it better be before then. I mean, I think we're in June, but I just can't say June 10th the way the original resolution read. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't want to lock us into for awarding a contract.
So the last thing is the DOT approving everything? So 48 hours after the DOT approves it, we need to have a closing?
That's what this states.
That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at. is
yes.
What's the last,
I anticipate the last possible thing being the DOT permit, because everything else will happen sooner than that, based on what we know today.
So the motion that we would be presenting is the motion that you read initially.
The initial motion that I'm asking for is authorization to sign agreement to close purchase of real estate based on the document that we have in front of us. And it's called Agreement to Close Purchase of Real Estate with those contingencies.
I would make that motion. Got all that, Suzie?
I'll second it.
I'll get it from the
Motion by Kurtz, second by Scharf. You want a roll call, I'm assuming?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
yes,
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin, Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. You have the second half of
The
this?
second half of this is the motion that the council approved last Monday pertaining to the resolution to provide for notice of hearing, proposed plan specs, form of contract, an estimate of cost for Enterprise Drive East PCC paving, sanitary sewer, and water main construction project, and taking bids thereof, was contingent on successful closing. I would ask that we adopt a modified resolution. In essence, the resolution that I'm asking you to approve negates that one. It's exactly the same, minus the contingency of closing. Everything else is exactly the same. It would authorize us to go out for bid, advertise for bids next week. June 6th, we would accept bids in the same timeline as we do on our other street project. But it eliminates the contingency that we had on there, that we have to have successful closing.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Motion by Hill, second by Kurtz. Roll call.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes,
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin, Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
That's all the business I have for you. I appreciate your willingness to come in today and help us move this forward.
motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, important deal. I was jumped about Dandelion Park this week. Are we gonna spray for dandelions in the park?
Dandelion Park is a historic site. We're not allowed to spray, and we can't talk about it in this meeting because it's not on the agenda.
I have a motion for adjournment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Scharf to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.